All systems fail is a declarative. Obviously, it's not completely true. All systems are operating, but all systems are failing. It's a contradiction in terms. It's a play, it's theatrical, it's performative, it's a gesture of where we're at. In the exhibition, you see works that start from 1992 to the present. You see paintings from 1994. You see the early sign paintings. Then it rolls into text paintings, Midtown, Capitol, Las Vegas, Rio, Abu Dhabi, Beijing, and it goes on. And so it's like a chain. It's literally like one place leads to another place, leads to another place. So the show is about navigation and about how we see the contemporary moment. What does it look like? What is this after image, this aftertaste that we all experience? Architecture to me has this aspirational fantasy of place. How do you want to see it? And we've seen all of this architecture through films too. There's a section in the show which is the film posters, which are posters I collect and then use as a ready-made form, and I use them as drawing paper in the studio for forms that I'm working on in the paintings. But this idea of distribution and how is one film moving around the world, all of this is connected, but yet it has many meanings, right? It has a different meaning in every different place. So I like this idea of an open text. I think of paintings as open. The interpretation is up to the viewer, and I've always been interested in that idea. Films are very fast, very collaborative, very expensive. They hinge on a moment, and you either get it or you don't get it. Painting, on the other hand, for me, is very slow, very systemic, very systematic. That's the opposite of film. So in the space of the paintings, in the space of making the paintings, I can think about where I would like to be, where I'd like to have my camera, what I'd like to learn from, what I'm repulsed by. The paintings allow this type of thought because there's a lot of, you have to be very patient making my paintings. So there's a temporal aspect of this production. The Lunar Series started in 2020. I've always loved calendars. I like these cheap calendars that you get from diners and gas stations, and this picture of places and this sort of temporal, like a portal. A calendar is like a portal. And so I've always wanted to do this. I wanted to make a calendar, my version of a calendar. And so I took the lunar cycle and used that as my calendar. And that you have this idea of like, well, what are you seeing? You're going through a hole, which we all were. So it's my version of a COVID diary. During 2020, I started shooting these little constructions, which we're gonna call Spiderweb. And I was admiring them. I've always admired them as this sort of improvised architecture, which is like a habitat. It's predatory, it's very beautiful. They're also sort of destroyed and wrecked. So I started photographing them and realizing that I could use these forms, these improvised forms, what seem like improvised forms. I mean, there's an engineering that goes on that's really ingenious. And so as I left the city of New York, I thought about the congestion and also the emptiness. And then I started to realize, well, maybe the city should be thought of. And I've always thought of it like this, but it was extremely clear during COVID that the city is an organic form. I like the modular form. When I started working, I started to think about, well, what is my modular form? And I started to think about the images, the square. I was very attracted to the square. And I think it's because of this openness of it being part of a grid, and saw the paintings as like connecting to each other. And I sort of thought to myself of the scene in Clockwork Orange where he's exposed to a series of images and they are used as a treatment even. And what would it be if art was that? How could you make your own propaganda? How could you make your own system of dominoes, what would it look like? And I think it would look like this. That's my version. Don't accept the boundaries that there are, that exist. Question them, move them, shift them, and maybe we can have something different.